Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, all participants. On behalf of the committee, with the warmest regard, we have the pleasure of welcoming you to International Symposium on Open, Distance, and E-Learning 2021. First of all, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Natasha Kravitz, and I will be your host for this morning. We have arranged very exciting agenda lineup for you today. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start, let me give you a brief introduction about this event. This coming December 2021, Pusdatin Kemdikbudristek is delighted to bring ISODEL back with a new spirit of collaboration with education stakeholders, researchers, educators, academic communities, and practitioners around the globe responding to the dynamic and challenges of education technology in the new normal, e-now, and beyond. The International Open, Distance, and E-Learning Symposium, or known as ISODEL 2021, will be organized as a 3-day virtual event starting from 1st to 3rd December 2021. This event will be broadcast from Jakarta, Indonesia. There will be a series of virtual webinar, virtual exhibition, and good practices that have been conducted by experts from a wide variety background, experience, and practice in the area of open, distance, and e-learning. And also, we have quizzes with a lot of prizes. This year's conference is held online as we acknowledge that the global pandemic has become inevitable and the world is going through a challenging moment in many ways. Ladies and gentlemen, to start off this event, we would like to invite Mr. Han Xiao Zhang as the Consular Department of Education Australian Embassy to give the sharing session. To Mr. Zhang, the time is yours.
Terima kasih, Ibu Natasha. Selamat pagi, apa kabar? Saya baru datang minggu yang lalu. So I will speak today's speech in English. Look, everyone, thank you for the opportunity to allow me to speak for a couple of minutes with you at this important forum hosted by the Ministry of Education. Today, I want to outline a couple of things. First, the strong bilateral relationship between Indonesia and Australia. Second, how we can engage going forward. And third, the experiences that Australian institutions and that we've experienced as part of online learning. So before I start, I'd just like to say that I've been in Jakarta, Indonesia for about 2 weeks. And what I've noticed is that technology is very much ingrained and entrenched in the everyday to-day life here. Between the apps of Gojek, Grab, Tokopedia, WhatsApp, I have never spent more time on my phone. And I'm a millennial. I've certainly spent more time on my phone than I had back home in Australia. But what this tells me is that Indonesia certainly has the infrastructure, the user base, and acceptance of technology. And that translates really well in terms of online education. So, Indonesia and Australia has had a very long-standing cooperation and collaboration in education. Each year, thousands and thousands of Indonesian students choose to go study at Australian institutions for Australian qualifications. And likewise, for Australian students, Indonesia is a preferred destination of choice, especially among scholarship groups in the Asia-Pacific region. On top of that, we've also got hundreds and hundreds of researchers collaborating between the different two countries. So this very, very strong people-to-people link has been in play for a very long time, and that complements our very strong industry-to-industry linkage as well. Something that comes to mind is the Australian Indonesia Centre down in Melbourne at Monash University, where it involves 7 Indonesian institutions and 4 Australian universities that collaborate on a wide range of different projects and issues. And I think this relationship will only strengthen going forward. Last Friday, our Minister for Education announced the 10-year strategy for international education in Australia. And I think this strategy bodes really well in terms of the relationship between Australia and Indonesia. One of the key themes from the strategy talks about diversification, and that is diversification of the student market and the student country, the source country. What this means is that the Australian government is actually working with our institutions to try to encourage more Indonesian students to study with Australian institutions with Australian qualifications. You might already have heard that the Monash University is establishing a campus here in Jakarta, Indonesia as well. And that is a very exciting chapter of our relationship. Another aspect of our diversification is around different types of mode of delivery. And that includes digital learning and online learning. And I'll circle back to that in a second. Another key pillar of the strategy is that the Australian government is putting student at its focus. You know, what we want to make sure is that we're delivering world-class experience for international students, regardless of where they come from. And that means providing better support. That means making sure that the students are aware of their rights and responsibilities. And again, it means connecting the international students with the local community, which is very important to ingrain these international students into the society. And just to share a personal story, my dad was actually a student visa holder from the early 90s. And of course, he's moved from that to a skilled migrant and beyond. But what's interesting is that back in the early 90s, he studied bakery. So his skill was literally making bread and baking bread. And so that aspect has certainly changed over the last 30 years. We've moved to a much technological focused aspect of field of study and so forth. So now let's circle back to technology. I mean, who would have seen 18 months ago what could have happened? No one. But the Australian institutions, and I'm sure along with the Indonesian institutions and many universities around the world have had to adapt. They've adopted wide-scale technology learning and delivery. And Australia was very lucky in that we do have a very strong regulatory framework in the higher education space, and that our institutions have historically been involved with the innovative ways of delivery. So they were quite well placed. I know that some of you have attended these webinars about online education that was delivered by the Australian Department of Education, Skills and Employment in conjunction with the Ministry of Education here. And throughout these webinars, we've been able to, I guess, pinpoint the best practices for online education. And I'd like to share some of that with you. First point is about the regulatory framework. So in Australia, the National Regulator for Tertiary Education sets a standards framework in which, regardless of which institution or course or mode of delivery, you'll have to meet these standards. So it didn't matter whether it was delivered on campus or online, the standards had to be met. The regulator was also very active in assisting and informing institutions of what constitutes best practice in online learning. So that included delivering guidance, support material, making that available, and also delivering, again, a whole bunch of webinars. So they were very engaged with the sector in informing the institutions of the best practice. The second component is around the course material and the technology used. We all know online learning is not about translating the material on campus to a Zoom meeting call. It's much more than that. It's about micro learning. So we found that students actually learn better with bite-sized chunks of learning when it's online. We know using video makes a big difference for students in terms of their online engagement. And that's where Australia was very lucky in terms of its base for technology. It was quite advanced and it had a lot of resources to put towards these platforms that are bespoken for the lecturers and for the students. Another aspect is grouping. So making sure that students are not isolated. They're getting into breakout rooms and they're chatting to each other in terms of the assessments, the learning, and so forth. Another key pillar of the learnings is around the lecturer's capabilities. Now, I've never been a lecturer or a teacher, but I have been a student. And I can feel the difference between an engaging lecturer and someone who's not. It makes a world of difference. And this capability and engagement with the student is much more prominent when it's delivered online. So having those soft capabilities, having those empathy skills and pedagogical skills to engage with the student is also very important. And lastly, it's about having a formal assessment and evaluation framework in place. It is very important that students are provided direct feedback and they understand what they need to do in order to gain all the learnings and improvements throughout the program. All of the things that I'm talking about really goes into the heart and the objective of online education, which is to provide flexibility and also accessibility for students without diminishing the quality or the student experience or the learning outcomes. Now, I believe these lessons and insights from what we've learned in Australia can be applied in Indonesia as well. And all those webinars and the key themes that I talked about are publicly available. So I certainly encourage you to take a look if you haven't had the chance. But I'm also here in Jakarta as a Council of Education Research to facilitate cooperation and partnerships between Indonesian lecturers, universities, institutes, and industry with Australian counterparts. So if you have any ideas or if you want to engage and collaborate with Australian institutions and researchers, please reach out to me and my team. I'm sure Ibu Natasha would have our details that we can pass on, but I'm certainly happy to open the door and facilitate that discussion. Thank you once again for giving me the time to speak with you today. Terima kasih and sampai jumpa lagi. Back to you, Ibu Natasha.
Thank you very much, Mr. Han Xiaozhang, for the motivated sharing session. Good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. This morning, we already opened the event with sharing session from Mr. Han Xiaozhang, and now we shall begin our main agenda for today. We have 4 plenary session and 2 parallel breakout room you can attend. The link can be found in the chat box and in the following slide. Well, first of all, I would like to give you the explanation about what you can have at the plenary. First, at plenary 5 in plenary room 3A with the theme character building, digital literacy, 21st century skills, critical thinking and problem solving, collaboration, communication, creativity and innovation, life skills, learning to be, learning to do, learning to learn, learning to live together. With the moderator, Ms. Linda Martina from ICE Institute, with our following speakers. First, we've got Amit Goyal from Education ex-Head of Southeast Asia, and next, Ms. Cheng Yu, Project Officer, ITU Asia Pacific. And in plenary 6, in plenary room 3B, with the theme also character building, digital literacy, 21st century skills, critical thinking and problem solving, collaboration, communication, creativity and innovation, life skills, learning to be, learning to do, learning to learn, learning to live together. With the moderator, Muhammad Farid Zeno from the Ministry of the State Secretariat, with our following speakers. First, we've got Dr. Purwanto from Center of Data and Information Technology, Ministry of Education, Culture Research and Technology. Next, we've got Professor Teresa Franklin from Instructional Specialist and Independent Consultant, Ohio University. And last but not least, we've got Egeliki Papa, Founder, CEO, Head Director of Studies, I Love Dyslexia, or ILD, Innovative EFL School, Athens, Greece. Please enjoy the plenary room.